for a family of 4. In the north end of Middletown, we have 2 census tracts divided by Main Street. On the left side of Main Street, the median income for a family of 4 just is getting really close to 30 in the last census data. So it's half of what the rest of the city is. In the other census tract, it hasn't gotten anywhere close. It hasn't even broken 25. So a family of 4 in the north end of Middletown that is living on the northmost side of Main Street is making about $24,600 a year, supporting their family on that. So we have in the north end of Middletown some of the issues that you see in any urban center that has high levels of poverty. We still have the most open and accessible drug market in Middletown. We often have issues with prostitution in the Main Street corridor. We have, with drugs, prostitution, some of the other things that you see. One of the main things, what I'm here to talk to you today about in some ways, is hunger and food insecurity. So those are some of the issues that face our neighborhood. And the way that NEAT is addressing these issues is by working with the residents of the neighborhood to empower them and to educate them so that they can advocate for themselves. 10 years ago, the neighborhood was a much different place than it is now. All the issues that we've talked about were just running rampant. The north end of Middletown was actually written up in the New York Times. There was an alley that spanned Green Street and Ferry Street that was known as the alley, and it was known in New York. Folks were coming from New York to Middletown to buy drugs in the north end. It is not the same neighborhood that it was then. So a lot of the issues have been addressed, people have worked together, and things have started to change. We're not all the way there yet, so we still have a lot of work to do. But when you see a city reinvest in a specific neighborhood and put resources there, what you often see come with that is rapid gentrification. So we have a lot of businesses who have come in, a lot of growth in the neighborhood, and then people maybe start to think, okay, things are going really well down there. You know, you have a new cupcake shop, you have a new pizza shop, things are really going well. We don't need to spend as much time and energy thinking about the north end. As our numbers indicate, that's simply not true. The general for the schools in Middletown, the 8 elementary schools, you know, we have Moody has the lowest free and reduced lunch rate, and they're hanging below 20%. Some of the other schools are up a little bit higher. In the north end, the free and reduced lunch rate is over 70%. So 70% of students in the north end qualify for federal free and reduced lunch. They're also a Title I school, so they're receiving additional resources, and people are putting additional stock and sort of bringing up the quality of education in the north end. We have a fabulous principal. We're doing great work. The community is rallying around the school. So in addition to the additional resources from the city, there's also additional resources from the Organic School Committee. We have fruit in all of the classrooms. Breakfast is served at the school. So we're really addressing hunger in that way in our school. So the way that we deal with things, and the way that we work in the neighborhood, and this is where I'm going to cheat a little bit, we have 4 initiatives at NEAT. We have our Youth and Family Initiative, and within that we have a mentoring program, a college-bound program, our hiking club. We offer 1 NEAT scholarship a year. It's about $500. It's not super exciting, but it's still something. And we partner with our schools, like I said. When the redistricting happened a few years ago, the north end has always been a neighborhood divided. Unfortunately, when there's that much poverty in such a small place, they like to break it up and disperse it into multiple schools. The north end students used to go to 3 schools. It's now down to 2. There are some students who are still bussed out for various reasons. If they had a sibling that started to a different school, they're still headed out to those schools. But the majority of our students are back at McDonough. So the lion's share of students in the north end are at McDonough School. If they are in that second census tract, if they're on the opposite side of Main Street, they go to Farm Hills. Yeah?
I don't understand. I don't know what north is. Like, is it like down by Route 9?
What do you mean, the north?
What do you say?
The breakup of Main Street. So the kids who are at Waterside Commons, the kids who live above the Main Street shops, all of the shops on our side of Main Street, the north side of Main Street, have residents above it. So that's, and one of the other things that happens in the north end, sort of a different thing that's interesting and worth noting, is that our side of Main Street is a highway, it's a federal highway, whereas a state highway, whereas the other side of Main Street is a city road. So once you cross Washington Street and head towards the bridge, that part is maintained by the city. So for us to do anything, like if you see on the other side of Main Street, they have those pavers that are made to look like cobblestones. When you're crossing the street, it looks like you're crossing a cobblestone. We are not allowed to have those because we are a state road. So the state DOT would have to approve it. So unfortunately, that gives the perception that the city wasn't investing in the north end. We're like, okay, we're going to give you guys down here the cobblestone, and up here, you guys, we're not going to do that. We're also not part of the downtown business district because of the way that the tax burden is broken out. We continue to work with them. We continue to look for interesting ways to partner. We continue to allow services to our business district that they get. And I will say, for the DVD, they have been fabulous, even though based on the way that things work, because on the other side of Main Street, it's business, business, business. So they're able to sort of share the tax burden. Lots of times they're too high or too high. On our side of Main Street, it's a business with residences above. So the residents aren't sharing that tax burden to move us into the DVD. The DVD for their part has been fabulous in offering us alternative ways to participate and extending their planters down the street. So we don't continue to have that visual that this side of Main Street has and this side of Main Street does not. So we really appreciate that. And it provides continuity and just part of the perception is that the North End is sort of scary. It's where you don't want to go. You definitely don't want to go there at night. But we're really working on changing that perception. We're working with residents. I don't know if anybody has had an opportunity to attend a First Thursday event. So the First Thursday in the North End, which we are fondly referring to ourselves also as the Arts District of Middletown, because we have MAC 650, which is the artist co-op. We have the Green Street Arts Center. We have the Frame Shop that's doing a lot of stuff. We have Ursul's Web. We have Budwood Trade, thank you. Yeah. So they're all of those groups are working together, and a lot of times the Cupcake Shop has art up. So they're working together to have an event the first Thursday of the month that encourages people to come down and participate. Crust has been, no, you went to the Gallery Walk, which was, the Gallery Walk has morphed in, yep, the Gallery Walk has morphed into this first Thursday event. This first Thursday event is all of the arts establishments are participating. They have arts and events, and some of the eateries are participating. So you come down to the North End, you can get a deal on some dinner at Eli Cannon's or at Crust. The Cupcake Shop runs a special. They often also have pop-up markets where they're bringing in vendors, Connecticut vendors who are selling stuff that they make. So it's a really great event. It's encouraging people to come down to the North End. We're trying to work to get residents involved in that event. Another thing that we're incredibly proud of is the North End Farmers Market. That happens on Fridays. We're hoping that the cold snap didn't really hurt us, and we've been starting our market earlier every year. So last year we were able to start, we had 2 weeks left in June, we were able to start the market. We're hopeful that the late spring didn't stop that and we'll be able to do that. We're waiting to hear back from our vendors. I think they're waiting to hear, sort of get a feel for when they'll have something to sell. So as soon as they have something to sell, we start our market. What makes our market unique is we do a double value coupon program, and what that is we have money from some funders, Wholesome Wave and Wholesome Wave Foundation, who are the sort of forefront of double value coupon programs, and Chifa was the last big funder. So we have money, and if you are coming to our market and you're shopping with any of your federal food benefits, we're a WIC certified, SNAP certified food market, so you can use your WIC benefits or your EBT card at our market. And if you're using any of your food dollars, your state benefits or your federal benefits, we'll double it 1-to-1 up to $60 a month. So we're putting an additional $60 worth of fresh food into families' homes in the North End. In addition to our double value coupon program for adults, we also have our kids market program, which is one of the programs that we're most proud of. One of the sort of most innovative things that's happening in the North End. There are several sort of pop-up summer camps that happen for kids who are A, not able to afford summer camp, or B, somehow missed out on scholarship opportunities. We have a summer lunch site, which is partnered with CRT, the Community Renewal Team, and they run programming from breakfast until lunch. And part of the programming is North End staff comes in, teaches kids about local and sustainable food. We do activities, we teach them how to make snacks, pretty simple snacks, because some of the kids are like 7 and 8 years old. So we teach them how to make a snack and how to do that at home, and then we give them $5 weekly to shop at the market. There's also ways that they can increase that money. So if they shopped last week at the market and they bought kale, and then they come back the next week and they tell us how they used the kale, they'll get an additional coin. If they drop draw a picture or take a picture or make some sort of art project, they'll get another coin, so they'll have up to 2 coins. We also have recipes of the week that we're giving the kids. If they tell us that they made the recipe, if they give us some feedback on the recipe, they can get additional coins. So they can get up to 7 coins each week. And we're encouraging them to become educated consumers. We're encouraging them to learn what grows locally in Connecticut, when is the best time to eat it. We're also encouraging them to ask questions of the farmers. We bring chefs in who do sort of more elaborate snacks than the kale chips that we take in home. But the idea behind this is if we are educating the children, if we're teaching them about what is sustainable for Connecticut, then they'll bring that into their homes and they'll share that with their families, and we're creating entire households that are more educated about eating local and that the food movement. We also have a whole Eat Local campaign. So each week at the farmers market, thank you very much. Each week at the farmers market, we have a statistic about why it's important to eat local. Those are all on our farmers market website, so I encourage you guys to check them out. But the work that we're doing is a very small part of food insecurity in Connecticut. It amazes me when I attend a workshop and hear that Connecticut, which is one of the richest states, has a fairly high level of food insecurity. And food insecurity is the feeling that you are not going to be able to access enough food to sustain your energy level and keep you moving throughout the day for the things that you need to do. So 18.5% of families in Connecticut with children are food insecure. They're not sure that they're going to have enough food to feed their family. So the farmers market is something small that we're doing to address that. We're also partnering with the school in some of their initiatives. I encourage everyone to check out the Middlesex Children's Coalition website, which is coincidentally where Izzy Greenberg has gone. She's working for the Children's Coalition, and they're doing some amazing work around hunger, specifically childhood hunger. They just had their hunger panel this past week on Thursday, so they have some fabulous information on their website. If you go to their website, which you can Google, and you click on their first page, they have the End Hunger CT PowerPoint, which gives a really accurate picture about hunger in Connecticut, and they also have a breakdown for just Middlesex County, so you can see locally how children are doing. In addition to sort of working to address hunger, we're also working to empower residents. So we're doing leadership development, we're encouraging Indigenous participation on our board of directors so that we're creating a neighborhood that has a voice, a neighborhood that can identify an issue, figure out ways that we can work together to solve that issue. And if we can't solve it within our neighborhood, how do we advocate at a city level and potentially a state level to make changes happen? A perfect example of one of the things that we are doing that we're having a little bit of trouble with. I'm not sure how many folks are familiar with the Bridge and Miller neighborhood. It is a neighborhood that you would see only if you're coming up Route 9. So if you're headed up Route 9 into Middletown and you were to look to your right, there's a little neighborhood there to where Alfredo's Seafood used to be. Many, many years ago, before I came here, the access to that neighborhood, the city access was cut off. So there's an at-grade crossing that's pedestrian only. It's not a car crossing. And it has a gate, a padlocked gate over it. So if you live in that neighborhood, and we just added up the numbers, there's about 100 people who live down there. If you live in that neighborhood and you are coming into Middletown, you have to merge onto Route 9. If you're coming towards Cromwell, and you want to get home, you have to go all the way into Cromwell and swing back around to get into the neighborhood. The at-grade crossing is only for emergency vehicles, and we have heard that the crossing is so damaged that there's not a real belief that they'd even be able to open it if they needed to. After winter and a lot of plowing and potentially some vandalism, the crossing is so damaged that it wouldn't even be able to be pushed open. So there is emergency access crossing right there, so if the police need to get there, but there's still, even with emergency access, they're crossing 3 lanes of traffic in order to get there. So we're working with the residents there to come up with creative solutions to address that need. We've met with the city and the DOT and sort of opened those lines of communication. Unfortunately, the belief is that opening this at-grade crossing, which is Providence-Worcester rail line, based on the fact that it is the city because of where it's located, the railroad because they own the at-grade crossing, and the state because it's a DOT issue, the cost to open that is too great. So we have to find another way to keep those residents safe and keep them engaged with the city. So that's one of the things that we're currently working on. So that's sort of what NEAT does in a nutshell. I could probably continue to prattle on, but I would love to have conversations with you guys about how we can involve First Church in what we're doing, how we can collaborate and involve you guys in what's happening in the North End. From the things that we're doing to just improve the life of the children in our neighborhood. One example is we have our hiking club, and we are always struggling for people to provide transportation for the kids. They're all usually Connecticut hikes. We do one big overnight hike a year, which unfortunately last year we weren't able to do because we just didn't have the manpower. We didn't have the adults who were able to commit. We didn't have enough vehicles, and we didn't have the funds to rent a vehicle, so it just unfortunately had to be tabled for the year. The farmers market also, well, it's a fabulous program and continues to grow. We continue to have more interest. Like most not-for-profits, NEAT is in a position where we're looking at shrinking our staff instead of growing it. We formerly had 3 full-time people. We're down to 1.5. So I am the only 100% full-time employee. So the farmers market is a huge undertaking. So we're always looking for folks who are interested in participating, who are interested in volunteering, who are interested in making some phone calls for us. So those are some ways that are really easy to identify, but I would love to open up the conversation so we can consider what might be some other ways that we can Yes?
2 questions. McDonough School is pretty special, so can you say a little bit more about that school, since it's a small neighborhood school?
Sure.
And number 2, can you say more about your funding? Why is your funding shrinking, and what are the opportunities to grow that?
So McDonough School, I'm on the McDonough School Governance Council, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm also excited to say that kids that go there, it is truly an amazing place. And again, much like the neighborhood, we couldn't say that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it felt like North End residents were trotting up to meetings all the time to argue not to close that school. It is a community school, whereas the majority, with 1 or 2 buses, the majority of our students walk to and from school. Like Walking Wednesdays, where you see the entire school community coming together with their yellow balloons and their McDonough t-shirts, and they're walking into the school. They wanted to have a summer program, just to give you a sense of what kind of school McDonough was. They wanted to have a summer program because they felt that kids were losing a lot of what they'd learned during the school year over the summer. They went to the Board of Ed said, yes, we'll run the program. They ran it for 1 year. They went back, and the Board of Ed said, it's a great program, but we don't have the funding. The staff at McDonough had a meeting and said, we can't let that stop us, and they volunteer over the summer to run the program. So the staff is giving their time to make sure that the students that are most at risk for having a learning lag over the summer are able to still retain that information because they're meeting with teachers for 5 weeks during the summer. So teachers are donating their time for 5 weeks during the summer. It really is a special place with sort of an amazing culture. You walk in and there's some sort of a celebration going on, people are excited, you can tell that it's an environment where learning is promoted in organic ways, and it's a really special place. He hates this, but I credit a lot of that to the staff and their leadership. John Romeo is an amazing guy, he really is. He's also very humble, so you can say that when he's not here, but he hates it when you say it when he is. And the garden, our garden. They have a garden. Yep, they have one of the gardens. So we partner to get their garden rolling, but they have a garden at McDonough, which is one of the community gardens in the North End. We're breaking ground in another garden, so we will have a total of 5 community gardens in the North End this summer. NEAT runs the Aaron Street Garden and the Ferry Street Garden, which are both food gardens. McDonough is running their garden, which is yields a decent amount of food. And then we have one garden that we're unclear. We sent the soil to UConn to be tested. And if the soil is great, we don't have to build too many raised beds. We'll grow food. It's a very small plot. We also have one garden in the North End on Portland Street that we were told by UConn, even if we built raised beds, we couldn't guarantee that the soil wouldn't foul because it was on a plot of land that the city had torn down 2 existing homes that were so full of lead and asbestos that the soil is so foul that we couldn't guarantee we could safely grow food. The other one was our funding. So unfortunately, we are so dedicated to serving the North End that we limit the amount of people that we're serving for most of our products at 4,600. It's not a huge service area. We can't compete with people who are serving all of Middlesex County or who are serving all of Middletown. And we really don't want to stray from that mission. We were started by folks who believed in the North End, who witnessed violence happening in their neighborhood, who really wanted to work together to raise the neighborhood up. So the more that we sort of expand away from serving just the North End, the more that we move away from that mission. But unfortunately, that really sort of limits the grants that we can go after and the grants that we can attack because we are a small service area. And additionally, bigger not-for-profits are having the same problem. It's a really tough and competitive funding market right now. People are putting a lot of their emphasis on making sure that organizations that are doing healthcare or helping people get into homes, this sort of a focus. And we found that there's a shift every several years of what people are focusing on, which is one of the most frustrating things when you're working in an organization that's constantly seeking funding streams, because it feels like you get really good at one thing, and then they're like, okay, now we're going to fund this, and then you sort of figure out, can we do that? And then you're over here and you're like, okay, now we can really do this, and they're like, just kidding, we're back to funding something else. And once we start something, we remain committed to it. So we received a large grant to do foreclosure prevention. We're a level 1 foreclosure prevention organization, and that is one of the things that we do for all of Middletown. If anyone in Middletown is at risk of going into foreclosure with their home, they can give us a call, and we, basically at level 1, we point them in the right direction. We assess that this is a risk, we assess that they've done the basic things that they can do, and then we send them to somebody who is going to be able to walk them through the process and hopefully help them keep their homes. So that was one of the things that we started doing because of a funding stream. That funding stream has now dried up, but we continue to do that. We continue to offer homeownership classes in partnership with Liberty Bank. We continue to do credit counseling. We continue to do foreclosure prevention, even though we are not receiving funding for that. We're currently receiving funding from the Office of Policy Management to do violence prevention work in the North End. That's one of the things that I brought was our poster, which I'll pass around for our gun buyback. We had our gun buyback a couple of weeks ago, and we bought 101 guns. So we had budgeted, we didn't anticipate we were going to have that sort of turnout. So we had budgeted enough money to buy about 50 guns. And I really honestly, I was up the week before, I couldn't sleep. I was hoping we were going to have 2 guns. I was hoping that someone was going to come. We had invested all of these resources and hired additional officers and asked officers to volunteer their time, only to sit there for 4 hours with nobody to come. We had the opposite problem. By 10:20, my Erin volunteered. By 10:20, I had to send her to the store for more gift certificates to buy guns. So we ended up buying 101 guns. The majority of the guns that we bought were long guns, which means that we paid $100 a pop. Which means that I had to take the budget that we had lovingly created and decide about halfway through the event if we would stop buying guns and turn people away, or we would continue to buy guns and pull the money from other programs. We obviously opted to continue buying weapons. We wanted to make sure that if anyone wanted to turn in weapons, we were there and we were able to accept them, and we were able to pay what we had offered. We did receive a couple of unregistered high-capacity magazines. We received a couple of weapons that had serial numbers that had been removed in one way or another, some potentially organically through the gun, just miscare. They were unreadable. We also received a couple of weapons that had been sawed off, which is just illegal in our state.
And really from anyone.
Anyone could have brought a gun. We publicized it. We had a couple of news sources picked it up. So we didn't ask where residents were from. We didn't ask. They were able to give information because then we would guarantee that if it was a registered weapon, that they were off the registry, so the gun wasn't attached to their name anymore. Mm-hmm. Heaven forbid something happened and it was stolen from the police department, which I think was probably a long shot. But we wanted to make sure that people knew that we were doing that and we were removing people from the gun registry if it was a registered weapon. We're also doing a lot of work on relationship violence because we took a real hard look at the North End and said, what sort of violence are we seeing in this neighborhood? And thankfully, we're not seeing gun violence. We're not seeing a lot of robbery, a lot of real violent crime against people who don't know each other. What we are seeing, unfortunately, is relationship violence. Not necessarily even romantic relationships, but any sort of relationship, parent-child violence, violence between friends, violence between roommates, and romantic relationships. So we really wanted to take time to educate folks in the North End about what they can do. If they're a victim of relationship violence, if they know someone, how can we work to create an educated population that knows how to address this need? So the majority of the funding that we've received has gone to classes. We started with our kids. We did a workshop called When I Get Angry, I. So instead of hitting, kicking, punching, yelling, what can we do? We can draw, we can sing, we can run, we can play. And the kids were able to make video shorts on what they chose. So when I get angry, I. When I get angry, I draw. When I get angry, I sing. When I get angry, I dance. And they did these digital animations, which were about 25 seconds long. They're really quite amazing. So we have the Vimeo of those that I'd be happy to share with anyone. But so now we're investing time and energy into this violence prevention program when we've been told it's potentially a 2-year funding stream. So we've got 2 years to create all these great programs. that then we'll be committed to continuing. So we also have a relatively small annual appeal. Lots of larger organizations have better luck just reaching out to people who support them and receiving the majority of their funding that way. We just haven't been that lucky. Our residents and the supporters do the best that they can. They do a really great job, and they really commit themselves. But again, because it's 4,600 people, it's a very specialized organization. The amount of folks who are able to support us is small, and we understand that because there's a lot of organizations that are really important. So I know that my donation dollars, I want to stretch them to 5 or 6 organizations, which means everybody's not getting a huge chunk of change. Yes?
So I actually have 3 questions.
Sure.
The logic of which, when asked together, might make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll forgive me, I'm coming here from 30 years in Philadelphia where it's not possible to find a vegetable without a half-hour bus ride.
Yes.
Okay, so the first question is, do you have evidence that the people in your community are actually using the farmers market, or is it being used by gentrifiers and by people outside? So A, are people actually using the market?
Mm-hmm.
B, do you have evidence that people are actually cooking and using raw ingredients as opposed to prepared foods? Which is more easily purchased and more easily stored than raw ingredients.
Right.
And then do you think there might be interest in cooperative food purchasing programs so that people can purchase high quality food at lower cost vis-a-vis a food cooperative?
They are great questions. And we wanted to make sure that we had that evidence that we could provide to people. So if you're using your food benefits at our market, we ask you to register weekly. So you're filling out a basic name, address, how many people are in your house, so that we can track it. We can say the majority of people who are using our double value coupon program are coming from Middletown. The majority of people who are using the program are coming from Middletown. We do have people who save their WIC checks and come to our market once a month from surrounding towns. And I was surprised by how far people were willing to come in order to double the value. If they're saving food benefits once a month, it really worked out for them. The majority of people who are using the market are Middletown, who are using our double value coupon program. We don't track outside of the DVCP. So if folks are coming to support the market, we look at that as supporting this program. So I'll be perfectly honest, we're really in it to bring high quality, low cost produce to North End residents and then residents outside of that who would not otherwise be able to afford it. So we meet the definition of a food desert, the FDA definition of a food desert with one exception in the North End. And that is, we have a grocery store within a mile as the crow flies. Unfortunately, people aren't able to travel as the crow flies, and it's literally, you can't do it by roads. We're not quite a half an hour, but if you want to get to a grocery store other than the bodegas or Ion, which is a wonderful market, but will admit produce is not what is keeping their doors open. They're not providing high quality, low cost produce to anyone. It's just not the mainstay of what they're doing. So in order to get to one of our grocery stores that you could access that in the North End, you have to take a bus and a transfer. So you're getting pretty close to a half an hour from the North End. So that's why we wanted to do this. We don't track anything other than who's using food benefits at the market. So if you're a cash shopper, we don't track that. We did have exactly what you said happen. The first year we came out and we were like, this is fabulous, we want to provide this food, look at all the kale we have, it's going to be great. And the feedback that we were receiving were, yes, you encouraged me to buy kale, I bought kale, and then it sat in my fridge and went bad because I had no clue what to do with it. So we partnered with a program called Cooking Matters, and they offered 2, and now we're going to run one for teenagers, series of cooking classes in our office, the same time as the farmers market, where residents were encouraged to try recipes. They bought the ingredients from the market. They taught people how to cook the meals. So we're starting to work on that sort of education. We're providing simple recipes so that people don't feel so overwhelmed by Hubbard squash. I looked at it and I was like, I have no idea what to do with that food. But we're providing easy recipes. We're providing easy information so that people do understand how to use it. And I don't remember the third part.
Cooperative buying, because I
Yes.
actually am personally interested in finding a group of people with whom I can cooperatively buy high quality food at low cost.
Yes.
And I know that this could be, I presume that this could be a benefit to your community. So is there, do you have experience or do you perceive a need for cooperative buying?
So we offered a farm co-op through our market. It was fabulous. It worked well. People were able to receive their weekly boxes. We couldn't figure out a way to make it happen with EBT dollars or with WIC checks, and that's where we're really running into a stumbling block. We have a lot of people who are interested in cooperative buying, who are the people who are supporting our market in a cash way, the people who are coming and doing their shopping because they believe in the program, because it's in downtown Middletown, because they want to support the DVC program, but we weren't able to find a way that we could offer that to residents who were using food benefits, and that's really what we would be interested in doing. So I think that I can offer you lots of opportunities, including myself, to partner in buying healthy organic food in a cooperative way. I would love to put our heads together and figure out how we can include people who are using food benefits. Double value coupons. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question, and I'll be honest with you, I think I know the answer to it. But I would ask about, is being a bipartisan apolitical organization? And what I'm getting at, these are details, and there's no denying meat really gets done, the gardens and so forth. But this center plan thing, I mean, this threatened to put a really hard hit on like all of Middletown, and that's what people thought. And it's my impression meat was kind of for it and facilitating to it happening.
So we facilitated conversation. So for anyone who's not familiar, the Center Plan project was, they were looking at a plot of land in between Pearl Street and Washington Street to partner with Wesleyan University to open a bookstore, and the rumors in the street were that there was going to be a Starbucks and a Chipotle. And there was a lot of people who immediately mobilized against it and provided a lot of information, and I will say some of it was not factual. Some of it was there was just, whenever something like this happens, both sides hit it so hard, and there's a ton of hype, and there's a ton of sort of, like people with ears to the ground talking about what's going to happen. What NEAT always does is make sure that we provide an opportunity for both sides to present an argument to North End residents so that residents can decide what they want, what they would be interested in. So while I personally had opinions about it, my job, I work for the 4,600 people in the North End. So if the majority of them said, we need this, we need jobs that are, because one of the things that, one of the bells that was rung a lot was that they were providing low-wage jobs, low-scale, low-wage jobs. If the residents had said, that's actually what we need in the North End, we need jobs that we can go and apply for, we don't need a ton of training, then that would have been what I would have done. That would have been what I would have advocated for. If the majority of our residents said, absolutely not, we don't want this in our neighborhood, then that would have been what I advocated for. What was tough was there was a lot of people in that moment who were speaking for the North End. They were saying, this is what the North End wants, this is what the North End needs. They were having rallies in the North End. And we actually worked very hard to stay uninvolved in that.
One follow-up.
Sure.
The format, I attended, I guess, 2 of those meetings.
I only had one center meeting, so the other one I had someone else who was sort of saying they were North End residents.
The theme was everyone got 3 minutes.
Yep.
Catherine Johnson got 3 minutes,
Yep.
Ed McKeown got 3 minutes.
Yep.
And the guy that posts up on the corner all night got 3 minutes.
Yep.
And the developers, that was just like, to give you can't make the case against it in 3 minutes.
Right.
You know? But it's like, well, that's democratic and fair. I would say it was rigged.
I would say you also can't make a case for it in 3 minutes then. I mean, again, we can argue what my personal opinion was, what I felt about it, what I think, and I think that people would be surprised what I personally thought. But we had to offer everyone the same amount of time to speak because that's all we do. Otherwise, we end up with a meeting that's 6 hours long.
Well, I would say it was 100% ineffective, and the developer and another developer type were just. See, I thought.
So funny that we were at the same meeting, and that's actually the only North End meeting I've ever walked out of. The only meeting I've ever walked out of because I felt we weren't providing our residents with the side of people with the actual information about what that project could have done for the North End. So we walked out of the meeting with very different opinions. I was sad that we didn't have more people who could explain what the benefits might have been. So
I'd say that's probably because it worked for it.
I would beg to differ. I think that, I think that having more jobs, more walking jobs in the North End might have been helpful. Yes.
It's a complaint of sorts.
Sure.
But possibly just a way of also opening and offering another advantage. I unfortunately can never go to the farmer's market, either the one at the North End or the one on the South Range, because of the hours that they're offered. Now, I think for a couple of years, maybe it's been 3 years ago, the farmer's market was like at night, possibly the first Thursday night of the month or the first Friday or whatever. And it was kind of neat to be up there and be a part of that. But because of my work schedule,
Right.
and I hear you saying today that the farmer's market is supposed to benefit those in the north end.
Yes.
But if you could do it like in the evening and encourage people to kind of go up. I mean, the one I did go to at night seemed to have attracted a lot of people.
It did. It was awesome.
And it was kind of nice, and I was like,
Very
boy, I
nice.
hope you guys can do this again. And if you did it one time and I couldn't go or something, but
We didn't. So, and I'll tell you why. It was an incredible amount of work. We would love to, and our goal would be to have our market when the first Thursday was happening. If we could get our vendors to participate in that, if we could get them another night, if we could get them, and that is honestly something that we hope to work on. But again, one of the ways that we can partner is having someone who can take the lead in making those phone calls and encouraging those vendors to participate. We sort of have, so we don't charge vendors fees, but we ask our vendors not to raise the price of their produce. So we ask them to sell their produce at our market at a certain rate because we don't charge them vendors fees. Because of that, we sort of get the Friday afternoon slot.
I'm sorry, you get what?
We get the Friday afternoon slot. We can't be a
Oh.
Saturday market or a Sunday market.
Got it.
Because they can make more at their Saturday and Sunday markets by raising the price of their vegetables. So we have a Friday market, but the way we can get around that is having an evening market. And when it did happen, that one time it had that festival feel and it was very exciting and it was warm, and we would love to do that again. We just need people who are willing to drive that bus. Yes?
So you said a lot of work, but you mentioned phone calls. What else comprises that a lot of work?
Farmers are some of the busiest folks I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
So saying a phone call is potentially unfair because usually in order to get in touch with the farmers about any sort of special project, it requires several phone calls and several emails because we're dealing with them in the height of their season. So it's a lot of follow-up with the farmers. It's a lot of pulling permits from the city. When we have an evening event, we need to partner with ION because we ended up having to close their parking lot, so we needed to close Liberty Street so that there was appropriate parking. We had to deal with some safety issues because it was a different time, different traffic issues. So those sort of things need to happen. It's just a lot of legwork. It's not problems that we can't solve, it's just someone who can do the legwork.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay, I don't know, I think I'm suffering from dementia, but for the gentleman from Philadelphia who's new to this area, there are several CFAs, Cooperative Farmers Associations in this area, and I use a bicycle as my primary means of transportation, and I can get to them and get fruits and vegetables. So you could either look them up over the internet, or we can meet after this meeting, and you can give me your email address. But there are several CFAs in this area. They're farmers, they're local connected farmers trying to keep their farms alive.
Right.
And
That's what we had, and when we had a CFA at our market, it was one of the farms that came, it was George Hall. So they were bringing they have a CFA that you buy a share of, and they were bringing their shares to Middletown to the farmer's market, and we were
he's
using as a
down,
distribution.
I don't know if he's in Portland or
Glastonbury, I think, he's right there,
I
yeah.
ride by
Yep.
his, that's my bike route to Hartford. I go down 17A to 17 and then go over into Hartford.
Yep.
But,
And it was nice having a Middletown pickup, and I think that we would be willing to do that again.
And also, I mean, well, I don't want to pat Fred on the shoulder here, but Centerton was a cancer that was going to infect downtown Middletown.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of
I
point at
live
this
right
point
on the corner of
discussing
Church
it.
and Broad Street, and
Yeah,
when I moved in, I've been here for 7 years now. When I moved into downtown Hartford, I never thought I could be an urban pioneer. It was like unthinkable. I moved here because I love somebody, and I moved in with her because she owned a house. I have come to love downtown. It's vibrant. And also, I mean, I go to the Butler Tree all the time. I've never felt unsafe walking
nor have I. I mean, I
on the
just to be clear, I'm also a
streets of
Northern
downtown
resident.
Middletown.
I
I
live on
have
High Street.
never, ever felt unsafe, even at 10 o'clock at night,
Right.
walking down the streets to go to, I don't know, I hate froyo, but I do it every once in a while. But, you know, it's like, it's a safe community, even when the Wesleyan kids are out. You know, because,
Most especially when they're out, because there are a lot more
Yeah,
people
well,
in the area, actually.
yeah.
We deal with, unfortunately, one of the things that we say all the time is we're dealing with a perception that's more than 10 years old.
Yeah.
We're arguing against things that just aren't true anymore.
Yeah.
I will also say I live in the North End. I bought my house in the North End. We had a lot of trouble finding a real estate agent. We found a wonderful one who was willing to show us only homes in the North End. The first several real estate agents we talked to said, let me show you something somewhere safer.
Yeah, and that's where my girlfriend wound up finding. We have the house near the corner of Church and Drive with the white picket fence and all the daffodils.
Gorgeous house with all the flowers in front of it.
Yes, the house with all the flowers.
Right.
But also, the third thing is I can talk to you privately.
Sure.
I'm a hike leader for the Appalachian Mountain Club.
Awesome. That would be fabulous.
So
We would love to have you
I
participate.
would love to volunteer my time.
That would be fabulous.
So
That's
I'll talk to you
really
after
nice.
this meeting.
Great, great. Yes.
I don't have a question regarding doing taxes at the North End, actually.
Sure. We partnered with the VITA organization, the Volunteer Income Tax Association. So that was a program that we didn't run. We just partnered and provided a site for it.
Now, I was just wondering, what's the last day that you can actually do your taxes?
Last
Is
Tuesday
this
was the
your
last day that
day?
VITA did it.
Doing it at H&R Block, if you were late getting to the North End actually?
They do the last date that they do. It was last Tuesday, whatever that date was. So that they may have done them. They may have done them and there's another site they use, the United Way.
Was last,
That day. So they may have done them on Wednesday and Thursday at the United Way, but we don't. The last date they did them in our office was Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
So that's like,
No, Tuesday, that's already passed.
Tuesday, bad.
Yeah.
we just did our taxes this last week at H&R Block, and we just missed
Yeah. Just missed
it
it.
by 1 day.
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Bobbye, thank you so